Hola and welcome to Spanish Extreme Metal. This time it's a band called Muert with their new album which is out later this week. Tomorrow, this one is Haeresis. This one is something that could be described as just fast tempo black metal with a little bit of a touch from death metallic side. One could also make the claim and say this is quite typical war metal. It's very intense, it's fast tempo, it aims to be very heavy. That is going beyond the borders of just fast tempo and intense black metal with its kind of a mismatch type of an extreme metal. Now, I would definitely say this would and could be described as war metal band. There's a lot of things that are just sounding plain black metal because of that rather death metallic seasoning on this one. I would say, yeah, war metal is pretty much the box one would put this into and do right by so. Now, as with so many war metal bands, the tempo is often very, very high. That is, there are not too many mid-tempo parts and, well, slow tempo parts are not exactly the forte of this band. But even so, there are a little bit of those and that's quite fine. This band comes from the place called Tenerife, which is a very, very famous holiday spot for a lot of Nordic people. I mean, for Finnish people, Canary Islands and Tenerife is equaling meatballs, cheap beer, and taking the tan, enjoying the sun and all. So, from Finnish perspective, it feels very, very weird to have a band that goes all the way to the world of extreme metal, let alone things like war metal, because it's like the opposite of that, where people in Finland go about snow and, nature and all that stuff and kind of beat them to it, because it's so cold and extreme weather and all that stuff. And then they take their Canary Island holiday resort flights just to kind of chill down and take a break from it all. And then you have these kind of bands coming from there. It just feels weird from the Finnish point of view, but nothing wrong with that. I mean, Spain, be it the part of the continental Spain or, the islands, it's fine. There are plenty of decent bands coming from that place as well. So Haeresis is the fourth album by this band that was founded many, many years ago, and unfortunately it's not exactly a good album. Now, my initial spin with the album was something like, this is not gonna do it. This is not exactly a solid release, but kind of a boring one, kind of a mediocre one, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, this seems to be one of those albums where tempo defines it all. I mean, you just push the gas pedal down and you think it's gonna figure it out on its own, What else do you really need with extreme metal than fast tempo? Add some, reverbed vocals, you're kind of shouting, not exactly growling, not exactly raspy or shriek type of black metal vocals, and you're done with it. That's how I feel that these guys are thinking. Obviously, they are not thinking the way, but as a part of the audience, as a music listener or fan, I feel like, yeah, this train left the station like 20 years ago. Now, a lot of bands try to do the kind of a combination of death and black metal or war metal in the kind of a ways that you only need this kind of fast tempo, chaotic riffs, and the violence will just kind of sort it out the rest. Like, you really don't need those good riffs or memorable parts, catchy chorus things or whatever, or very super cool vocals. Unfortunately, it's not gonna cut it. For maybe if I was like, I don't know, 17 years old, I would be like, wow, this is really brutal and all that stuff. But having this strong background with death metal and strong background with black metal for more than 25 years, almost like 30 years, it's not gonna cut it. I mean, there's so many bands coming from death metal who just outplay these kind of bands, both in production, songwriting ones, riff-wise, and all that stuff, not to mention vocals. When it comes to black metal, the same thing can be applied. Now, this might seem intense unless you start comparing them with bands like Marduk or even Dark Funeral. They are somewhat different, but they are also a lot better when it comes to this kind of a speedy extreme metal. And by speed, I don't talk about speed metal, but I'm talking about bands that go to their field of extreme metal with very, very high tempo and still are able to, shed some brutality or violence or sheer satanic feeling. Like, for instance, I was listening to the early and late Funeral Mist lately. Now, that is very, very far from being death metal one, but the sheer intensity when it comes to tempo and those riffs, it's like from a different world. Now, I don't want to be a mean Jack and say Muert is totally useless band. Quite the contrary, I kind of understand where these guys are coming from and where they are trying to go with this kind of album. It's just not gonna cut it for me anyway. I mean, the riffs, they are very, very forgettable. It sounds like this is the very first or second demo by a new band that is figuring out whether or not they're gonna be more on the death metallic side, or should they maybe go for black metal, like undecided, and the result is rather chaotic and in fact quite boring. Now, that being said, the production is not exactly very cool, but that is not the biggest of their problems. Vocals, they lack a lot of power. They might be very angry, they might have a lot of intensity as such, like, shouting out those lyrics, but they don't sound powerful. When I compare to the death metal crawling, they sound weak. When I compare to the black metal raspiness or shriekiness, they just sound bleak. So it's like the worst of both worlds, basically. And the riffs, very, very forgettable. The changes with the songs, I'm gonna yawn. So I cannot really recommend this to almost nobody. Why almost? Because I know there are death metal or war metal fanatics who might find this one interesting. The kind of death metal fans who don't exactly like typical black metal because it's weak and lame. And the kind of black metal people who want to have a little bit of death metal in their music, but who find the typical brutal death metal or otherwise just too much of a redneck thing. So in case you feel like you're, have something to do with these kind of people, you figure out war metal is the thing to go. Maybe Muert has some stories to tell for you and maybe you will like it a lot. For me, a big disappointment, not gonna deny it. Anyway, do you decide for yourself. There will be a stream of this album on the label's Immortal First production site. So go check it out if you want to hear it right from the very beginning, or wait until tomorrow when the album is actually out through the official channels. That is 28th of January 2022. Have fun with it. I hope you can enjoy it more than I could. Thanks and bye bye.